Welcome to Educasts, home of Educasters. In the world of education, we often talk about learning as if it were a simple transaction. The teacher has the knowledge, the facts, the dates, the formulas, and the student has an empty bucket waiting to be filled. We pour the information in, test to see if it's stuck, and move on to the next unit. That is what we call informational learning. It is necessary, sure. You need to know that 2 + 2 = 4, or that the capital of France is Paris. But if we are being honest, that kind of learning doesn't really change who you are. It doesn't keep you up at night. It doesn't make you look at your neighbor and see them in a completely different light. For that kind of heavy lifting, we need something deeper. We need a framework that explains how adults don't just add to what they know, but actually change how they know. This is where Mezirow and his transformative learning theory come into the picture. It is arguably the biggest game changer in the field of adult education over the last 40 years. Mezirow, an American sociologist and educator, didn't just pull this theory out of thin air. In the 1970s, he was studying women who were returning to higher education or the workforce after a long hiatus, what we might call re-entry programs. These women weren't just learning new job skills. They were undergoing a radical shift in how they viewed themselves, their roles in society, and their relationships. They were rewriting the scripts of their lives. Mezirow realized that education for them wasn't just about adding new knowledge. It was about transforming their entire frame of reference. This video is going to take a long, hard look at transformative learning theory. We are going to peel back the layers of how it works, why it matters, and how it plays out in the real world. We will ditch the dusty academic jargon where we can and stick to real, authentic American English to get to the heart of the matter. We want to understand how this theory helps us make sense of our experiences and ultimately how it helps us grow up. The core concept, frames of reference. To get a handle on Mezirow's work, you have to understand one central concept, the frame of reference. Imagine you have been wearing a pair of sunglasses your entire life. Maybe they have blue lenses. Everything you see, the sky, the trees, the ocean, is tinted blue. You don't even realize you are wearing them. You just think that's what the world looks like. Then, one day, someone knocks those glasses off your face. Suddenly, you see yellows, reds, and greens that you never knew existed. You can't unsee them. You can put the glasses back on, but now you know that the blueness isn't a property of the world, it's a property of your lenses. In Mezirow's theory, those sunglasses are your meaning perspectives. They are the broad, generalized predispositions that we use to interpret our experiences. They are built from our culture, our upbringing, our language, and the neurosis of our parents. They are the big picture filters. Mezirow breaks this down further into 2 parts. 1. Habits of mind. These are the deep-seated, habitual ways of thinking, feeling, and acting. They are tough to crack. Examples might include ethnocentrism, thinking your culture is the best, a belief that hard work always pays off, or a deep-seated fear of authority. 2. Points of view. These are more specific. They're the immediate attitudes or beliefs that come from those habits of mind. If your habit of mind is, liberals are ruining the country, your point of view might be, I hate this specific policy proposed by a Democrat. Points of view are easier to change than habits of mind. Transformative learning happens when we realize that our frame of reference, our sunglasses, is distorting reality or is no longer serving us. It's the process of becoming critical of our own assumptions and shifting to a frame of reference that is more inclusive, discriminating, open, emotionally capable of change, and reflective. It is not just about changing your mind on a topic. It is about changing the way you make up your mind. The spark, the disorienting dilemma. So what kicks this whole process off? Mezirow called it a disorienting dilemma. We humans are creatures of habit. We like stability. If our current way of thinking works well enough to get us through the day, we aren't going to mess with it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So, for transformation to happen, something usually has to break. A disorienting dilemma is an experience that doesn't fit into your existing worldview. It's a curveball. It's a glitch in the matrix. It rattles your cage. These dilemmas can be big, life-altering events. Getting fired from a job you identified with, going through a messy divorce, the death of a loved one, or receiving a scary medical diagnosis. These are having the rug pulled out from under you moments. They force you to ask, who am I now, or why did this happen? But, and this is important for educators, dilemmas don't always have to be tragic. They can be subtler. They can happen in a classroom. Reading a book that completely flips your understanding of history, getting into a heated debate with someone from a totally different background, or traveling to a foreign country where your social norms don't apply. For example, imagine a student who grew up believing that success is purely a result of individual effort. They take a sociology class and volunteer at a homeless shelter. They meet hardworking people who are struggling due to systemic issues they can't control. This new information clashes with their old belief system. That tension, that discomfort, that is the disorienting dilemma. It's the itch you can't scratch until you change your thinking. The process, the 10 phases of transformation. Mezirow didn't just say change happens, he mapped it out. He identified 10 phases that people typically go through during a transformational experience. Now, keep in mind, this isn't always a straight line. People might skip steps, circle back, or get stuck, but generally, the roadmap looks something like this. 1. A disorienting dilemma. We just covered this. It's the catalyst, the uh-oh moment. 2. Self-examination with feelings of fear, anger, guilt, or shame. This is the emotional fallout. When your worldview is challenged, it feels bad. You might feel stupid for believing what you used to believe. Shame. You might feel angry at the person challenging you. You might feel guilty about your past actions. Mezirow is often criticized for being too rational, but he explicitly acknowledged that this starts with a gut punch of emotion. 3. A critical assessment of assumptions. This is where the brain starts to kick in. You stop just feeling bad and start asking, wait, why do I believe this? You start looking at the assumptions holding up your worldview. You realize that maybe the truth you held onto was just an assumption passed down by your parents or your culture. Recognition that one's discontent and the process of transformation are shared. This is the I'm not alone phase. It is huge. If you think you are the only one going through this crisis, it's isolating. But when you realize others are asking the same questions, like the women in Mezirow's original study, realizing their struggles weren't personal failures, but shared societal issues, it becomes empowering. 5. Exploration of options for new roles, relationships, and actions. You start looking for a way out. If the old way doesn't work, what does? You start trying on new ideas for size. Maybe I could go back to school. Maybe I don't have to be the breadwinner to be a man. Maybe my political party doesn't have all the answers. 6. Planning a course of action. Now we are getting practical. You stop just daydreaming and start strategizing. You figure out what steps you need to take to live in this new reality. 7. Acquiring knowledge and skills for implementing one's plans. This is where traditional learning comes back in. If you decided to change careers because of a transformation, you still need to learn the skills for the new job. You are gathering the tools you need for your new life. 8. Provisional trying of new roles. You dip your toe in the water. You act differently in a low-stakes environment. You might speak up in a meeting where you usually stay silent. You try out this new you to see if it fits. It feels awkward at first, like breaking in new shoes. 9. Building competence and self-confidence in new roles and relationships. The more you practice, the easier it gets. The new perspective stops feeling like a costume and starts feeling like your skin. You gain confidence. 10. A reintegration into one's life on the basis of conditions dictated by one's new perspective. This is the finish line. You aren't going back to normal. You have a new normal. You have integrated this change into your daily life. You see the world through those new lenses, and you make decisions based on that new clarity. The engine. Critical reflection. If the disorienting dilemma is the spark, critical reflection is the engine that drives the car. Without it, you just have a bad experience, not a transformative one. Mezirow distinguishes between a few types of reflection, and it is worth getting into the weeds here because the nuance matters. First, there is content reflection. This is thinking about what we perceive. It's asking what is happening right now. It's pretty surface level. Second, there is process reflection. This is thinking about how we perceive. How did I come to this conclusion? Did I look at all the evidence? This is getting warmer. But the gold standard is premise reflection, or critical reflection. This is asking why. Why is this problem important to me in the first place? Why do I care? What are the underlying values that make me see this as a problem? Let's use a classic example. The problem: a student is failing a class. Content reflection: I need to study more. I need to read chapter 4. Solving the immediate problem. Process reflection: maybe my study habits are bad. I should try flashcards instead of just rereading. Improving the method. Premise reflection: why am I even in this major? Is it because I want to be here, or because my dad said this is the only way to make money? Why do I equate my self-worth with my grades? That last one, that is where the magic happens. That is where you challenge the habit of mind. Mezirow argues that we cannot truly transform until we engage in premise reflection. We have to put our deepest beliefs on the witness stand and cross-examine them. The social piece, rational discourse. Mezirow was adamant that you can't really do this alone in a vacuum. You need other people. He called this rational discourse. Now, discourse sounds fancy, but it just means talking it out, but not just shooting the breeze. It means a specific kind of dialogue where the goal isn't to win an argument or prove you are right. The goal is to reach a common understanding and test the validity of your new beliefs. When you are going through a transformation, you are shaky. You need a sounding board. You need to articulate your new ideas and have people push back on them gently or validate them. You need to hear other perspectives to ensure you aren't just trading one bias for another. Mezirow outlined some ideal conditions for this kind of talk. In a perfect world, rational discourse happens where everyone has accurate and complete information. We are free from coercion. Nobody is bullying anyone. We can weigh evidence objectively. We are open to alternative points of view. We have equal opportunity to participate. Obviously, the real world is messy, and classrooms are rarely perfect. But the goal is to get as close to this as possible. We need safe spaces where we can be vulnerable but also rigorous in our thinking.